actually. There we go. I think we're live, everyone. So welcome, everyone, for the Behind the Photo show here at, well, I'm hosting it today. Aron is also here with me. So hi, Aron. How are you?
Hey, everybody. How you doing over here in hot PR, Puerto Rico? If you guys can see R2-D2 over here, he's blowing out some cold air for me because it's like 90 degrees in here. Apparently, that's what it says on the machine, 90 degrees. So hopefully the noise won't bother you guys too much. But if I shut it off, things are going to melt here. So, yeah,
it's going to be too cold. Just leave it. I mean, too hot. Leave it on. You'll be sweltering otherwise.
I could hear myself. Okay, there we go. So how's everybody doing? How you doing, David?
Yeah, really good. Came back from a great shoot that I did yesterday. I'll show that image shortly when we go through our photos. But I took out the Sigma 135 Canon version yesterday and did a full shoot with it with Rebecca at Lavandula Swiss Italian farm. So I did that. That'll be up on videos and everything soon. I will show a sneak peek of that coming up. So I did that yesterday, tested it against the 135 Sony lens. So that was really interesting. Did some really good focusing tests as well. So that's been exciting. What about yourself?
Just doing more Fuji videos. When you get into a new system, there's a lot to learn, actually, because just the other day I was fiddling around with video, and you know how everybody hates fly-by-wire or focus-by-wire, whatever you want to call it, because you can never, do manual focus pulls on point-to-point all the time. So I was going through the menu, and I just found out that there's a menu that says linear, which basically, even though it's still electronic, you can now mark your focus points and nail focus every time on whatever object. So I did a video doing on that, and I was shocked. That's pretty neat. Someone told, and I said in the video that no other camera manufacturer has it, but apparently Panasonic does or will have that feature soon. I think every mirrorless should do it. I think Sony should have a firmware update and do it because it's just an electronic type thing, easy to, I think, do a firmware update about.
Yeah, I saw that video. It did look good. I mean, that is one of the things that's bad about fly-by-wire. Depending on how quick you turn the lens, you just can't do that rack focusing, and it is bad if you want to try and do manual focus. I suppose the way of getting around it is to use a manual lens, and then you don't have that issue at all. But if you do want to use,
Yeah, I would always go with mechanical lenses if you could, but I like to keep, native lenses on all my cameras. I've always just been like that, as much as possible, of course. And we just don't have a huge option to do that. But because they have that linear option, I was just racking focus back and forth before I made the video, and every time it nailed my focus points that I put on the lens, and it's just, it's a game changer for how I can shoot now, because that's the only thing. Even when I do like commercials, even of like products, and I want to do a rack focus, like you just said, the faster you go, the slower you go, and then I would press record and go, I missed it again. It was just so frustrating. So now I can just mark my points and focus on different products and stuff. So yep, I love it.
Sounds great. So let's say how we're still in pre-show, guys. We'll start the show in a couple of minutes, but so we've got Oreo in here. Gilbert's also here. So they're up late as well from Europe. Brett's saying...
Hey, Gilbert, how you guys doing? Oreo, hello. Thanks for being here, guys.
Early as well. Gilbert, hang on, I was going further. Aron is also here. Morning, Aussies. Hello for the rest of the world. G'day, Aron. How are you? Ben Ashford's also here. G'day, Ben. How you going? He's blaming you for us coming on late. I love it. Casper's saying, waiting on Baby Angry Jr. again. Oh, Casper, you're a shocker. What else have we got? Oslo's just saying hi as well. Johnny's saying hi as well. Jason Weasel is saying, or Wetzel, I think it is saying, g'day, David and Aron.
Zoolander. That's true. Isn't that funny? Oh, my gosh.
Andrew's saying, hey, guys, good to see you both. Creative Films saying sup. Steve is also in here. G'day, Steve.
Creative Films, James Pack, hello.
David's there as well. John's here. Jason Raw is here as well. And yeah, James just saying hi as well. Now, if I do have to run off, guys, I've had to put in my A6400 to be fixed. For some reason, the USB port's not working. I tried to put it onto my gimbal yesterday, because with the gimbal, you can control it with a cable, and then you can change the ISO, aperture, and shutter speed settings, as well as power up the camera from the gimbal. That's the beauty of using the Air 2, the Moza Air 2. But I tried to connect it yesterday and there was nothing there at all. And then I thought, well, that's a bit odd. And so I tried to connect it to the computer and it won't connect even to the computer. So I think the USB port's shot. So I've got to send it into Sony Pro Support. They're great. I mean, it'll be fixed fairly quickly, but they come to the door. So I have to take it to them for the courier to pick it up because it gets sent to another state, which is in Adelaide, which is where it gets done. So if I do have to run out, basically that's why. The other thing, just quickly, I'll show you, I did finally get these. Aron was going to purchase them for me because I didn't think I was going to be able to get them, but I ended up getting the Rhodes. They came in. But the funny thing was, I bought this from B&H Photo because the Australians just weren't getting it. And then I got shipping notice. It's coming this morning from Australia, so I'm going to have 2 versions of them.
Oh, my gosh, that's crazy.
But I can use them for 2 anyway. Like if I'm miking up 2 separate people or whatever, it'll be handy to have them as a spare. But I used this yesterday, and oh, my God, this is fantastic, this little thing. Like, you know, just to be able to stick that basically on like this, and I had it the reverse, so I was putting it around that way and sort of hidden away. And just as a YouTuber, it's amazing because it's so quick to set up. Just put one on the camera, which is that side, and just connects onto the camera, and then basically it just works. Like, it was fantastic, and I love the little. I'll show you the little control part to this because it's really cool. So let me boot them up. I really think this is the way it's going to be. While
you boot that up, oh, sorry, I took your screen away. Give me a second.
Okay. So there it is there. If I get this to focus, just have to hide my face. There we go. So you can see it's chatting away there. Now, if you press the button here, it'll light up so you can sort of see what's happening. But there you go. So it works fantastic. You can set your volume levels on this little device and everything. You can also put a external microphone onto it if you want to. Brilliant little device. I absolutely love it, and it weighs nothing. The main thing I like too is the fact that I don't have to use you know, your normal lav mic, because I'm always breaking them, and that's one of the problems with the lav mics. They're so easy to break where they curl at the end, where they join into the actual unit itself, that I keep breaking them, and they're not cheap. So this is going to be a great solution, Aron.
Well, yeah, see, like if you see this, I've been using stuff like the same idea with the Sony Bluetooth ones, but being that it's Bluetooth, you can't go that far, which I don't normally do anyways, but the sound quality of the Bluetooth isn't all that great. What's that one Sony ambassador guy? He always does lots of different information videos of settings. Can't remember his name, but can't remember. I'm sure people seen him if you're a Sony user on YouTube. He's like all over the place. But I think he uses these. I've seen it before, and they're not bad. I mean, the audio is good, but it's Bluetooth. So I was always hoping that Rode or even Sony would come out with ones that are, you know, wireless. Like, what do you call that technology? Not Bluetooth, but
yeah, well, they are. It's wireless, isn't it? Don't they just call it wireless?
Like megahertz, you know, like a frequency instead of Bluetooth type of a frequency, which is kind of crappy. So, yeah, those are really interesting. So I've been using those for a long time, but those trump this. These only last an hour. Those last, I think, 3 hours. Is that true?
Yes. Well, 7 hours they'd go for.
Yeah,
so basically all day. I mean, and you can also connect them via USB battery, so they could run forever. In other words, so if you were doing something very long, you just connect a USB-C to it on a battery, and it'll run forever.
Okay, so show starts right now. Is that?
Yeah, so we'll start it up now. So if you want to start the timer.
Yep.
So, g'day everyone. Back for our usual weekly show. We just had a little bit of a pre-show. There will be a timeline down below, so if you don't want to watch the whole show, you can obviously skip using that timeline as well. And therefore, if you like a story that you like, you don't have to go through the whole lot if you don't want to. I mean, obviously, we like you to stay and watch the whole show. We've got a stack of people watching at the moment. Please give us a thumbs up, guys, if you can, because it does mean more people will see that it's on live, and then we may get even some more over. So we'd love you to be doing that. So basically, what have you been up to for the last week, Aron?
Just doing a little more Fuji gear videos, as I said in the pre-show. Discovered that there's a thing called linear where you can actually use your lenses and actually hit points, unlike the focus by wire. Even though it does it in a way where you can nail your focus points all the time. So I've been doing that. Going to be testing out some portrait lenses, hopefully in a week or so. And just more Fuji stuff, because when you get a new system, there's just a whole bunch to learn. And I'm like brand new to Fuji. Like I've had Canon, Nikon, Blackmagic, and I always kind of went back and forth between those. But this is new. So yeah, making new content with the Fuji gear. Also, every week we do on Behind the Photo. Actually, Behind the Photo is we talk about news of all different types of manufacturers. We're not stuck on one type of gear. We also each show a photo, and then we basically run through it really quick on how we got the shot. So it's kind of a learning thing for people who kind of wonder, hey, how did you get that shot type of thing? And so we do that. And then me and my wife travel a lot. I always drink coffee on the show. And every week I have a new mug with the new place that we got. And this is Salzburg. If you've never been to Salzburg, it's absolutely gorgeous. We were there for I don't know, last year, and just beautiful images. We were there when all the leaves were orange and stuff. So, yep, drinking coffee. And how about you, David? What you been up to?
Oh, quite a bit, actually. I'll talk about the lens in a minute. Just wanted a quick shout out, too, to say to people, don't forget, too, I'm coming out to the US for 4 weeks in February. Woo! So, yeah, so I'm dying to meet you all. But we are staying for WPPI. We're going to, I think, stay for a week or something there in Vegas at Planet Hollywood. So if you do want to stay where we're staying, so we can all get together, have a bit of a party, party time, go out for dinner and everything else like that all together. We're staying at Planet Hollywood in Vegas. So if you did want to stay there over that period of time, it might be a good idea to book in advance, because the longer you leave it, once WPPI starts really get it up and running, it might be hard to get the accommodation. So there will be shoots organized as well. I want to try and get out to the desert out there as well, and also meet people in LA, and I'm even going up to San Francisco, so I might be able to meet people up there as well. But apart from that, I've been testing this lens that C.R.Kennedy have lent me. Let me just see if it'll focus. This is the Canon 135mm. And I'm rapt that I tried this with the MC11 adapter on this, because this is the first adapted lens that I've actually used. But I bought the MC11 a few weeks ago, which was really, probably about 2 months ago, because I had this real wish to try some Canon lenses on there. Like I'd love to try the Canon 85 1.2 lens as well. But I'm really surprised how well this has gone. I can't believe how well this is focusing. I was shocked. I took it out yesterday. I've done a couple of shoots. I've done a studio shoot, and also the shoot that I did yesterday that I'll show you the image when we look at the pics later. But this works surprisingly well on adapted bodies, particularly on the A9, which I suppose the A9 is the flagship. But yesterday I did use it on the A7 III, and it worked very, very well as well. So if you were after something that is cheaper than, say, buying the Sony one, because the Sony one is, look, I mean, it's also stunning, and I've taken similar shots with this too, but this one is about $1,000 difference. So it's you save a hell of a lot in Australia if you buy the Sigma version of this. Now, this is the Canon version, so I've got a feeling that the Sigma version will be even much better in focus, because I believe when they do the Sigma, the Sony versions, the algorithms and everything are changed. Because I know Gerald, who had sent his Canon lens in to get fixed, because you can send them off to Sigma, and they replace this MC11 part or the mount with a Sony mount, and they update the algorithms for the focus. So it does work much better. But if you do want to save money, I can tell you that the quality is almost identical. And I keep posting images between the two of them, and it really boils down to whether you want the declicked aperture ring like what the Sony one has, whether you want the buttons that are there that are programmed, and whether you want the slightly better focus, because it is slightly better. But you know, $1,000 is $1,000, and that can buy you another prime lens or something like that. Or you could even buy the Tamron 28-75 in the same money that you're paying to get the Sony. So it's something to consider. I've been shocked how well it went. Like I said, quality-wise, I think they're both the same. But gee, Aron, adapted lenses are really coming a long way.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you're finding that it focuses really well, because I mean, just like 2 years ago or maybe 3 years ago, I lose track of time, where adapted lenses were just like, you just don't want to do them unless you're doing like manual type focusing and all that. So yeah, I'm glad that's actually working out for you. One thing I wanted to also thank everybody is I reached 10K on my YouTube channel.
Yes.
And yeah, and I kind of forgot. I'm at 10,200 and some now. And I just want to, if you're out there and you subscribe to my channel, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It really encourages us YouTubers when you see people liking your content. You think, oh, okay, I'm going to do more. I'm going to do better the next time. So thank you guys so much for subscribing to my channel. And also, I got this in. This is a Fuji XH1.
Ooh.
Yeah, let me tell you, I didn't even know this like existed really. I mean, I heard about it, but like I said, I was never into Fuji until one was given to me. And this is here, man. This is like, I've got my Sony A7. Well, this is a spider strap that I use on my Sony A7 III.
Are you just testing that, or have you bought that one?
No, it's mine. Yeah, I'm a Fuji guy now. And the cool thing about this is you don't get that really, really cool type of feel that you do with an XT3. You feel more kind of like it's got a screen on it and all that stuff, and it feels more like...
That's still APS-C though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same thing, really. The quality, you know, the XT3 is a newer backside illuminated sensor and all that, but really, I just don't see the difference back and forth with just a few shots that I did. I mean, I just got it, so I don't know. I'm going to do more tests on it, so stay tuned to that. But the handling of this feels like a Panasonic G9, which is a really good thing because it's my favorite ergonomic camera of all time, and it's similar to like a Sony A7 III-ish. So, you know, if you're going to do long shoots, this would be much more comfortable than an XT3. Even with the battery grip, this feels better, and this has image stabilization, and it has a really sensitive trigger that shutter button, which some people don't like, but it's built. This whole thing's built to get sharp images without shutter shock and image stabilization. So yeah, we'll be testing that later in the few days.
Cool, love it. All right, well, shall we start going through our news stories? So let me open up the first news story today, which is talking about the Tamron, because it's going to upset some people, I think, how long we're going to have to wait for this lens. But let me open up application. Because I've noticed that this was shared on Sony Alpha Rumors this morning, that everyone was sort of thinking that they were going to get this lens around about June this year. Well, that's what everyone was hoping, but they're now saying that you're going to be able to only pre-order mid-2019. And they're saying some bad news. It will take 1 to 2 months before Tamron will open up pre-orders in 2019 only, which means the lens might start to ship out in September, October only. So it looks like it's been pushed way back compared to what we originally thought it was, where it was going to be announced. Yeah, it is, Aron. I mean, I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully, Tamron Australia are going to get in touch with me. They said they would when it was released, but this might be the reason why I haven't seen it yet, because there may have been a hold-up with how they're going to release this lens. But I know after using, I don't know if I have got the, no, I haven't. I've got the Tamron in here. Oh, yes, I have. I know after using this extensively for the last 12 months that this certainly is, you know, one of my favorite lenses that I use. It is brilliant, this lens. And I'm so surprised because people keep talking about how these lenses are made compared to the Sony. Well, I can tell you that these lenses are holding up way better than what my Sony ones are exterior-wise, and that really has surprised me. So obviously, whatever they're using in their finish on these Tamron lenses is really good, because like you guys know, I'm pretty rough with don't worry, Aron's in here from C.R.Kennedy. I babysit the ones that are loaned to me, but it's outstanding how well you found it. It lasted well too, Aron, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think they just, you know, they think it's cheap because it's light and like plastic, I guess, opposed to, well, Fuji films are metal and the other more robust type things, but you know, it's kind of like Tupperware. You know, you could beat it up like crazy and it just lasts. So in my opinion, I wouldn't mind having lighter lenses like that actually hold up, like you said, exterior wise at least, better than the other expensive ones. So yeah, I mean, that was one of my favorite lenses of all time, actually, just because it's so versatile. It was sharp. Yeah, everything's great about that lens, including the build quality.
And the interesting, see, this is the thing that I always get like with the Sony stuff, and I haven't used this one as much as what I've used the Tamron. And see how you get the scuffing marks that are on the lens there. So that's really common with all of my Sony lenses that I get. And I don't know whether anyone else wants to comment on that as well, but it seems to be that I get that all the time. And when they're talking about build quality, well, I can't fault the Tamron because it like I said, I've used this more than any lens that I've got over the last 12 months. It has basically been on my camera the whole time. I've used it to death in weddings and everything else. And it's basically faultless. If I look at it, it looks faultless. Like compared to when you look at the Sony stuff that I've got, I haven't got any others out here, but let me see, well, even this one. Like this one, see, this is the, what's this one? This is the 55. And again, if you look at this, you'll see that something about the Sony stuff, the body, let me see if I can just get it to focus. All the bodies mark very easily. It's obviously because it's the metal casing. I mean, it's not damaged the lens, of course, but I know some people are very fussy if they want to sell stuff and buy stuff that, I mean, even the Sony name has been rubbed off there a little bit. So it is a metal casing. So yes, the external layer is very strong. They are metal, and this is, I suppose, it's a plastic material, but this really, like, this looks as good as the day I bought it. Now, I just noticed someone said there, Oreo said, yes, the external paint layer on the Sony lenses sucks. And it does a little bit when I look at how they've marked as compared to what the Tamron has marked. And it's interesting. Are the Fuji lenses the same as the Sony lenses, Aaron? Are they all the metal body with just the paint on them?
Yeah, they really are. Like, look at, I don't know if you guys can pick that up. I mean, it's little bit, but like on the focus ring itself, hey, look at that. The Fujifilm can actually continuously autofocus. Oh, wow, that's strange, right? But yeah, you could see that there's marks on this already. And I didn't even have this that long. I mean, what was it, like 2 months or something? So yeah, they wear out. And, you know, a lot of people were talking about the Fuji XT cameras, the paint job's like kind of wearing off. I think Sony A7 III was the same. Well, the one thing that they're toting about the GH1 is not only does it have a 20% thicker alloy, aluminum, or whatever you call it, chassis, but it also has 2 coats of the paint that they use. So it's supposed to not wear as much. So I was just thinking, do they only put 1 coat on the lenses and not 2 like that XH1? Because yeah, they wear very fast. I just got this, like, I mean, I've had, I don't know when I got this system, not too long ago, and it's already wearing. So yeah, same with these. That's why the Tamron was amazing. It's plastic, but it looks brand new.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, it doesn't make any slightest, I'm not saying that the Sony lenses are crap or the Fuji lenses are crap.
Yeah,
it's just the, I mean, they work amazingly and they're metal bodies, but obviously just the material that they use, yeah, cosmetically, they're really hard to maintain looking new. Whereas, like I said, I haven't had to treat the Tamron special at all or any different, and it looks as good as the day that I bought it. So it's just interesting. I was just reading some of the comments that Aaron said mine seems fine.
Aaron says, do I have the XH1? Yeah, I have the XH1 and XT3 still. XT3 is what's recording me. XH1 is what I'll probably use for most of my photography, just because it has image stabilization. And a lot of people say you don't need image stabilization. Well, I do, because I work really fast, and you can shoot low light and stuff. I mean, yeah, I love image stabilization. If I can have every camera that have it, I'll use it. XT3 doesn't, so I'll probably use this the most for photography.
I think the next XT3, the XT4 or whatever they call it, will go back to having that IBIS in it, though.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's the only thing missing out of it, really.
Yeah, it is, yeah, and it's going to happen. I suppose they had to leave something out to give an upgrade to the next one, so you'll probably find that'll be in the next one. Casper said Sony's Zeiss prime lenses have always been that way ever since the A-mount, so it's always been, and obviously even the Fuji are the same. It's just that external paint, which you think, you know, the amount that you pay for this stuff, though, you think that they could put some sort of a stronger, I don't know, outside to how they are. But
well, did you hear me about? I think you might have been busy. Did you hear me about the coating on the XH1, David?
No, I missed that.
Yeah, you were reading something. The XH1 is touted of being, 20% thicker chassis, so it's more robust aluminum or alloy, whatever, than the XT series. And they claim that they have 2 coatings of the paint because, like, the XT3s apparently wear off, kind of like the Sony A7 3s wear off. What is that? Hold on. As the A7 3s kind of wear off. Mine didn't wear off, but people were saying that they wear off. So this has 2 coatings on it, which I don't know why they're not putting 2 coatings on the lenses, being that you really touch the lens like all the time. So maybe that's something they'll start doing, and maybe more pro line lenses.
Well, especially with the price that they pay, that you pay.
That's what I'm saying.
The A9 has been terrific. The only area where I've seen to get markings, and I've seen a number of people sort of talk about that, is on the corner just through here. It's marking a fraction there, but I've seen that's quite a common bit. But overall, the A series bodies seem to be pretty good. I'm just looking at the A7 III because I got that earlier.
I heard the A7 III. So many people told me that they wear off, and mine never did when I had the A7 III. But people claim that they do all the time. I'm sure it's they're putting 1 coating because, like I said, the XH2 or XH1 they're touting as 2 coats. So apparently that's a different than other stuff. So it's
more that some of the corners on the A7 III, like when you look
that's
down
like the
through
typical
here,
spot.
Yeah, it's basically coming off there. But overall, I'm pretty impressed with how the cameras themselves have lasted. So that doesn't seem to be a problem. They seem to be a bit sturdier than what the lenses actually are. I suppose you're moving the lenses and pulling them off all the time and stuff like that. So it's interesting. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. Gilbert has also said my Sony A7 III paint is coming off on the base really bad. Yeah. So obviously they could up their game a little bit with the bodies, and perhaps they have to do like what Aron has been saying with that XH1 and, give another coat of material, because you certainly are paying enough for these things, that they should be looking a little bit better like that, particularly if you want to sell them.
Exactly. I think they will. They'll probably start doing stuff like that.
All right, so let's go to the next story, which is this one about Light. We're going to do a couple on Lightroom, but I've got this to talk about first. So let me go here. Application. Now, Lightroom have come up with a couple of stories, but we'll talk about this one first, and then Aron will talk about his one because he's tried it, I think, or he's looked at it for the Fuji. But I noticed Lightroom is now having interactive tutorials as part of the program itself. Now, I haven't looked at this yet. I only upgraded it late last night because I was out doing a shoot all day yesterday. But it looks like you're getting interactive tutorials that are in there. But the real thing that interests me more is what's been added down the bottom because in this article, because it talks about now that you've now got a defringe tool. I mean, you've always had chromatic aberrations as being able to be fixed in Lightroom, but it was just a click of a button and then you didn't have any control over the amount that, or could choose the color like you can with this new dialog box, which is there, which is showing it through here. And it's just saying Lightroom CC for Mac and Windows now has the new optic section called defringe that removes purple and green fringing caused by lens chromatic aberrations. So in other words, you can just select the area that you're dealing with. If it doesn't fix it, they're saying you automatically just click on remove chromatic aberrations like you can see there. But then if that doesn't work, then you can really get into the nitty-gritty of it and select the part that you want to actually fix and then take that out. So this is fantastic if you're dealing with lenses that have chromatic aberrations, Aron.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this because does it say it's yeah, I think it's going to, yeah. I've been processing my photos for 6 years on an iPad. I have not processed a photo on a computer for 6 years. So I went mobile like a long time ago because I travel a lot and it was just, I love the iPad. It's instant on type stuff. It just lasts forever. And I have an iPad Pro 12 point, whatever they are now. And back then you had to go through these quirky apps to process the raw files, but now it's pretty good. And to see them coming out with this is really cool, because when I had my Sony, the Sony A7 III with the Zeiss 55mm, there was shots that had so much chromatic aberration that the one click just would not work. So I had to actually go in there. This is on the iPad thing. Photoshop and all that other stuff might be different, but I had to go in there and just really do layering in another program to get rid of it because it was so bad. So I'm really excited since I'm a mobile user. So I'm excited. And there's a few more things we're going to talk about that Adobe is doing good, but then also is doing bad. But for this feature, really, really cool and exciting.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait either. I think it's terrific. I mean, I don't really notice that much, but like I said, I very rarely look for that sort of stuff, but at least I know it's there if I was sort of trying to fix an image that was showing that badly. But, it's a good update. Aron, just to talk about people commenting, Aron was saying that Fuji stated they will include IBIS in future X series bodies. Yeah, so David also said, how much will the Tamron 17-28 cost? Well, I think it's going to be the same money probably as what the 28 to 75 is, maybe a fraction more expensive. But it's going to be around that ballpark figure. Oreo said baddest lenses, paint is the best. Yes, and you're right, Oreo, because my baddest lenses are as good as the day I got it as well. And I've also used that to death as well. So that's very true, Oreo. I forgot about that. The baddest lenses do seem to have an amazing coating on them. So yeah, I forgot about that. Thanks for sharing that, because that's true.
Oreo also is saying that Aron, Lightroom can defringe manually since a long time. I don't understand. Not in mobile, at least. Like I said, I haven't used Lightroom for a long time. But for mobile, it wasn't there. It only had the check whatever, and it almost never got rid of the chromatic aberration. So this is a very welcome feature to the app. Like the iPad app, opposed to the desktop.
Yeah, because you can do it on the desktop version, that's for sure. That's been there for a long time, but this has been added on the iPhone app, which may be the way that the future is going to be. I'm also reading that Brett said none of my Sony bodies paint coming off, but yes, the Sony and Sony Zeiss lenses are. Yeah, and like I said, my bodies, they're pretty good, the bodies that I've got. Brett, I agree with you in that. Gilbert said maybe it's my style. I'm always having my camera on the floor. Every time I see Gilbert shots, he looks like he's been lying on the ground, which is quite funny. And that's
well, what's funnier than that is I'm the same way. I got tons of low shots, and I look like a complete idiot probably during weddings, because I'm like, I'm trying not to look like so obnoxious, but sometimes I'm just like rolling all over the floor getting that shot. And yeah, it's so I know how Gilbert feels on that. My cameras are always on the ground, but I always have something on the bottom. I always have something there, I guess. So I never get it dinged up. But yeah, I'm one of those floor guys too.
And the other thing I was going to say too is, what was it? It's just gone. Isn't that terrible? I hate that. Oh yeah, that's right. I noticed Adobe also have just put out feelers for people to do beta testing of Photoshop on the iPad, because that's going to be released soon. They haven't said when, but it's obviously not going to be too far away, because I think a lot of people may in the future be doing a lot of this stuff on iPads rather than on desktop computers now, because these new iPad Pros and all that sort of stuff are getting very, very powerful, and some of the bigger ones, like, when you get the 12-inch one, they certainly are workable in that respect, because you can also plug monitors in and things like that. There's rumors also that a mouse support is going to come out too. So I think that there may be an interesting play in the future that a lot more people may move away from desktops and potentially go more towards that. I've got an iPad Pro, but I never use it. I don't use it for any of this sort of stuff, because I just like to physically sit on my thing, and I like to use my mouse. I like to use the Wacom tablet and the keyboard and everything else, and I just find it suits my working easier than using an iPad Pro. But you use it a lot, Aron, don't you?
Well, yeah. See, I got it right here. That's all I used for. I didn't start on the iPad Pro 6 years ago. I had an iPad 2 or whatever it was called. I can't remember the iterations of the iPad.
Is that the 12-inch Pro, that one?
Yeah, this is a 12-inch. And when you use this Apple Pen, it's like a Wacom tablet right on. It's just like, it's amazing. And because it's pressure sensitive, and because the dots per inch, whatever, it's just like amazing. I could do eye things and get rid of veins out of eyes and flyaways and just everything. And this is like, I just would never go to a computer with this. I see no, for what I do, I see no need to use a computer because Lightroom's here. That's why I'm excited about the defringing tool and others that we're going to talk about coming to iPad.
Yeah, it obviously is. There must be a future in it with the way that Adobe are, like I say, now really starting to push it. And I believe the version of Photoshop that they're coming out with is a full version of Photoshop. So it's going to be like the desktop version of Photoshop. So, that's really interesting. And if you can do that sort of stuff on the move, I mean, it might be that, like, that'd be fantastic for me, like when I go to the States and I can start editing and doing things just on an iPad rather than taking, like a whole MacBook or something like that I use. So
exactly.
it's interesting. But have you ever tried connecting that to a monitor and see how it works?
No, I never did because I don't feel like I need to, just because, I mean, 12 inches is pretty low, even on the Air 2, that's what it's called, the iPad Air 2. Those were smaller, and they didn't have the Apple Pen back then, so it wasn't as good as the desktop. But I feel like the iPad is big enough, and the resolution is high enough with the Apple Pencil being so, intricate that it's amazing. I love it.
Well, Jason said, I really want to like the mobile versions of Lightroom and Photoshop, but they are just too watered down. Well, the new version of Photoshop is not going to be a watered down one, I believe, Jason. It's going to be full on. How different is the Lightroom version, Aron?
Yeah, that's the one thing, is it is a little watered down, but I think I'm going to do a video on my complete workflow on how I use Adobe and how I give to clients, how I share my folders with inside Adobe with clients that they can call the photos and heart them and all that stuff. And when they heart it, it actually leaves, I actually get a pop-up on my iPad saying, hey, someone, hearted or favorited or whatever, a photo. And I immediately know, like, well, I just sent the link out a day ago, so it must be the client. Sure enough, it is. And all I have to do is fix it right there in the iPad, right in the same program that they're hearting it from. And it's just like, I don't have to export nothing out. But because it's watered down, I use another program called Affinity Photo. And Affinity Photo
also asked that too. Sorry to cut in, but also asked about that.
Yeah, no, butt in if you need to. Affinity Photo is, I mean, it has so many of the features of, well, I was going to say, what do you call it? Photoshop, but I mean, Photoshop's completely huge, but for photography purposes and just about anything you'd want to do in photography within reason. Of course, I'm not talking about you can do wild stuff on it, but I use Affinity Photo for that. So in Lightroom, after my clients like the photos, I'm right there already, and I start fixing the lights and all that stuff, and lighting certain areas of the place using the marquee tool or whatever you call that. And then if I need to do something more extreme, then I just you can go to Send To or whatever it's called, Affinity Photo, and that's where I can just do all my skin retouching and all that stuff with the Apple Pencil. I mean, you can skin retouch, get flyaways and all that. And then when I do magazine shoots, I use Affinity Photo to render out the photo, because you can render it out, and I always forget that YCGB. I forget the format that the publishers want. It's not JPEG, it's YCKGB.
CMYK you're talking about?
Yeah. I can render out of Affinity Photo because Adobe only lets you JPEG. It's like, that's it, not even a PNG. So Affinity Photo does all that work for me, and it's pretty amazing. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Because I noticed too, Nivak said in here that I do 99% of my initial edits on the iPad Pro nowadays. Directly import raw files from my A7 R3 over to USB-C to Lightroom Mobile. Only need computers for the bigger screen occasionally. But Brett said, and I understand what Brett's saying because Brett does a lot of landscape and things like that. He says, I'll never do editing on tablets or iPad. The screens are way too small. Nothing beats a big screen for editing, especially landscapes and commercial shoots. See, we do more like portrait shoots and stuff. Have you looked at, say, landscapey stuff on the iPad? How do you find that?
No, I've done tons of landscapes type shots when I go on vacation. What do you need to do with a landscape? I'm not sure.
Well, it's probably more that you have to see large areas of detail, and I know when you're doing like portraits, you can say you're often just working on like the skin and you might be doing some smoothing, stuff like that. But if you're looking at landscapes where you might want to check the whole image as a whole, that I think that's what Brett's talking about there.
Yeah, like, because if you can see my screen here, this is my wife and her mother-in-law on her mom on Mother's Day, and with a portrait like this, if I want to do skin retouching, I mean, you can zoom in and it looks sharp. You might not look sharp to you guys now, but it's just as sharp as a 24 megapixel raw file can look. And so, I mean, it's really easy to get in there and do everything really. But landscapes, yeah, if you just want to see the whole thing. It would feel awkward getting used to a big screen and then going to a smaller screen. But I did it so long ago that going from an iPad Air 2 up to this is like, wow, it's so much better. So, yeah, it's to each his own. I travel a lot, so I kind of have to have something that goes with me, and I like the iPad.
So what's the resolution on that? Is not 4K, is it? It's just fairly high dense, though, isn't it? I don't know what the resolution is of the 12K of the 12-inch iPad.
I don't know. Do they even go by that? Don't they go by?
I think they just go by PPI or something. I think.
Yeah, PPI and stuff. And I don't know what that. I don't think it's quite 4K, but they don't definitely. If it was, they would probably sell it as saying 4K, but they don't. So I'm thinking it's not. But I don't know. It might not.
Probably for the future. Now I noticed in here too that someone, a hero, said, "Are there any good editing programs on Android?" Now I don't use Android. You don't either, Aaron, do you?
No, I never use it just because of that purpose, though. I tried using Android just as just a phone a while back, but it's just like, oh my gosh, they don't have the same. I just figured they would have the same apps, and they don't. So I went back to Apple for my photography, and I know David likes to keep everything Apple because it's just easier to switch from your phone to your iPad to my wife's phone if I need to send her something to your Mac, and so I've always stayed in this reason of the Apple, but the reason was because there's just no really good ones for Android. I don't know why not, but they're just not.
Now, Jason says, with the new version of Photoshop, will I be able to do things like frequency separation? Well, I've got no reason why you wouldn't be able to if they offer a full version of that.
Well, real quick, Affinity Photo on the iPad, I use frequency separation all the time for my skin retouching. I'm telling you, Affinity Photo is powerful. So once you do your initial edits in Adobe, if you want, you can go over to Affinity Photo and do your other stuff there. However, just in case you guys are watching, if you're shooting with a Fujifilm camera, Affinity Photo will not accept an Adobe compressed raw file. You have to shoot uncompressed, and that's because I think when the manufacturers compress it, they're using their own algorithms, and not every photo raw processor knows that algorithm or whatever, or cares to use it, or I don't know. But doing uncompressed, most every editor can use that. So Affinity Photo, you have to shoot uncompressed to open up a raw file over there. But I will add this too. Just the other day I noticed, and I have to do some tests. I'll do a video. I got to say this so if anybody's watching, I think Affinity Photo didn't bring in the full size of my Fujifilm file. So if it's I forget the resolution of this stuff. I might have cropped this 4160 by 6240. If that's it, it was a little smaller, so I got to look into that. But before you just run out and get an Affinity Photo, because Aaron said to do so, just look into that, or stay tuned for a video that I'm going to do very soon about that to make sure.
Oh, cool. Oreo actually said that the iPad Pro is 2048 by well, it's 264 PPI, so it is pretty high. I mean, I suppose the thing is too, they're always designed for looking at that at viewing distance. So, I mean, if you look at the iPad Pro that I've got, the resolution when you're dealing with it being close is really high. I mean, it's outstanding actually, even when you blow them up. So there's definitely enough resolution there. Brett said that he says, especially he doesn't like the iPads due to the fact of details in the shadows and portraits such as fashion shoots. But like I said, Aaron is saying that he has no issues with it. So I suppose it might be just depending on what you like. Photomiyak's here as well. G'day, Photomiyak. Are you back from Paris now or France? He said he's about to drop some drone footage, loving the Mavic Pro 2 that he's been using. I've noticed a couple of things have been up there. Let's see what else. Capono says, Aaron, I went opposite to you. I just acquired the A7 III as I gradually transition from the XT3. And like I said, it's just a personal choice. At the end of the day, your gear is just a personal choice that you want to make. Aaron particularly had a reason about it, that because he does a lot of jewelry and stuff like that, and he wanted the screen to flip out, which I can understand. what he wanted. Well, Aron, you can explain more why you sort of made the switch.
Yeah, well, I was with Panasonic since the GH2, and I really came in love with the complete flippy screen, not for vlogging, because nowadays it seems like every camera has to have a flippy screen for vlogging, and it's kind of the debate like, well, manufacturers don't care about the little bit of vloggers that are out there opposed to the whole thing, but I use it for video production where I'm in a tight space in a car where I have to fold the screen this way because it's up in the windshield. So for me, flippy screen was really important, and Sony just, we kept waiting for the Sony A7000 and all these things, hoping that they would have something, and nothing came out. Then the Panasonic S1 came out, S1, is that what it is? With that half flippy screen, and the Fuji's have the half flippy screen. So I was like, man, that would work for my low shots, as me and Gilbert were just talking about. We like to get on the floor and do a lot of shots, and that right there is just, for me, is just something that I use all the time. You hold it like this. Sometimes I'll do a jewelry shot of a model or my wife wearing jewelry, and I get a top shot like this. I know David likes to do shots. He's got a signature shot, a beautiful signature shot in his wedding photography where the bride's sitting on the ground and he's standing above. And with this, you don't need to get a stool or anything. You can just see it. So that was something I really needed. And I had micro four thirds, and this is APS-C, so this is even better quality than that. So for me, it just works perfect for me. 24 megapixels, of course, is fine. I did read a lot of people going to Sony from Fuji, but everybody's going from everywhere. Everybody just want to try something new and try to find out what works for them.
At the end of the day, like I said, it doesn't matter. The gear is the gear, and you just use what you're happy with. So,
yeah.
All right, well, let's go on to the next story because it's continuing on this that Aron's going to talk about. Let me just bring this up, which is another thing that Lightroom have added. But this is the desktop version, isn't it, Aron?
Where are we?
Now we're looking at the
no, the Lightroom texture thing. No, this is on the iPad 2, and I'm going to show you guys now here live on Behind the Photo.
All right, so do I stop this for the? I'll let you do this. I'll stop it. You can do it. Yeah.
So there's a new feature in Adobe Lightroom. This is Adobe Lightroom 8.3 new texture slider. Explain how it does. Let's see. Let's look at what we're looking at here. What it does is instead of sharpening, it adds texture, and it's not like adding noise or anything like that. It's sharpening in a different algorithm. And we'll show you the article here in a second when I just show you this. But you're not going to be able to see this good. I'm going to make a video about this. But if you go into, like, this is my wife shot on Fujifilm, and if you haven't heard before, Lightroom is terrible on the sharpening of Fujifilm files because the X-Trans sensor, for whatever reason, Lightroom can't figure it out, Adobe can't figure it out, or they just don't want to. But when you add the sharpening, you get all these small little worms. Like, you're not going to see it now because I didn't add any sharpening. And that's kind of the thing. You can add sharpening. Well, I'll go into it later. But it adds all these worms looking thing because it's sharpening up this weird type of thing. Well, what's cool about this new, and that is right here. So if we go to, oh my gosh, my glasses. If we go into detail, that's where you find the sharpening. And if we sharpen it, I'm just going to go crazy. And you're not going to see this, but there's all these worms everywhere. They just look like little worms. Well, if you go into this new feature called Texture, let me turn this, guys. We go into the effects panel and we go to texture. If we crank the texture up all the way, it looks really good and there's no more worms. It does, I mean, I'm zooming in at 500% right now or whatever this is, but it almost looks like maybe just a little bit of a noise to it if you're zooming in. That's how I can explain it, but it's not worms, right? But if you just, if you don't blast it all the way to 100%, I mean, it does really good. So if you're a Fujifilm user and you weren't using Lightroom because of the worms, that right there is a game changer for Fujifilm users. And I'm going to have to try it out more on more shots and stuff because this just came out. But so far, I'm really liking that texture slider, and it is for the app as well, along with the computer one too.
Well, I think Jason has said, I played around with the new texture feature. It's nice that you can apply it with a brush so you can control where the texture adjustments are applied.
Yeah, you can do, let me just show you guys, you can do local, if you guys don't know all this stuff here, there's this little panel here that is, oops, I can't see. It's like a localized type thing where you can pick your brush and you can, I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah. And whatever you do, of course, happens. And they're just like the desktop. So now you don't have to just sharpen up everything. And if you don't want I think most of you guys know how to use localization, sharpening, and all that type of stuff. So you can target areas for that, so your whole image isn't have that texture-y stuff to it. So yeah, that's really, really good. So now we can sharpen our images without the worms.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, so at least they're updating. It looks like they're really having a push on the mobile apps that are out there. Now, the next story is also an Adobe one, which I'll show you, which is interesting. Let me go to application window. It's this. Now, I noticed Adobe have said that it's in here that they're warning of potential legal action for using older Creative Cloud apps. And reading it through here, I read somewhere that they were talking about that they think it's because some of the earlier programs, it's probably more their video programs that were out there, like licensed Dolby and things like that, that now may not be the case. So I think that's what they're talking about, that it's using certain apps that were licensed for older applications, and those licenses are no longer available. And that's why they're saying that people may potentially get sued. So it's just a warning. I mean, we'll put the links down below so you can have a read of this as well. But, it's just something I thought, wow, I never would have even thought that could be the case, because I know a lot of older people don't like to upgrade to newer things, and they like to go back to the older apps. Although at the end you sort of have to if you buy new cameras, because you can't get support for the latest RAW encoders and stuff like that need to come out, or camera support and lens support, for instance. And I noticed, for instance, like today, I believe also the latest update of Lightroom now supports the Sony 135. So they are upgrading all the time. So if you are using older ones, excuse me, you don't get that support. But yeah, did you read the app? Did you read that, Aaron? Or
yeah, I did. And I'm no lawyer or anything like that, but just from my initial reading and my understanding is that's pretty crazy, because I still use an old version of After Effects, because it has all the features that I use or need in my video productions, my special effects, my color grading, my compositing. It does everything I need. I don't need the new one. So I thought it was kind of, I can't use it no more. I'm using like illegal software now. So I think that's really a bad thing. And two ways of looking at this, they're really pushing people to do that monthly thing, because I paid for my After Effects years ago and it's mine. But apparently, if they were saying if you read the fine print, they can do whatever they want whenever they want. And I'm sure it does say that, which is a bummer. I don't know why they just don't say, hey, we're just completely not going to support it. So if you call in with issues, we just not are going to help you. Stuff like that, just to kind of poo-poo the idea of people sticking with that. But then maybe they're doing that because the way they're doing it now, it's harder to get like bootleg copies or whatever you call it off of pirated websites or whatever like that. Maybe it's easier to get the older ones, so maybe they're just kind of giving that type of thing out there, like, hey, if you're doing, I don't know. I think it's bad that they would do that. I think they should just not support it. And like you said, they don't support any new like cameras and stuff. So if I put a raw file into my After Effects for my Fuji camera, it doesn't open. Yeah. So I think there's just good points for the person to upgrade on their own if they want, not be threatened like, hey, if you use the software you bought, we can legally come after you. That's kind of weird.
Well, I know, like, see, if I noticed Photomix says he hates CC19, Photoshop CC19, he likes CC18 more. But see, it's things like Lightroom, you can't use the older version of Lightroom because it won't open up the A7 III. So, you get to the point where you have issues if you don't use the latest stuff. So it can be a problem. But yeah, it must be some third-party stuff. Langston has also been talking about it, that they put one over on the people they were buying licenses from or something, as he's talking about as well. It's a bit sketchy on how many licenses they sold when moving to the CC model. So there's probably all stuff in the background. Oreo also said that his Sony system is sharp enough. I very rarely have to sharpen. He said, I never have to sharpen my pictures. They are sharp enough. When I used to shoot Canon, I was sharpening all the time. Michelle said, I read that warning from Adobe to be regarding the older Creative Cloud apps. Yes, it is the older ones, Michelle. So it's not the new ones. It's definitely the older ones.
What was the comment on the sharpening you said, David?
The Oreo said he never sharpens. He says it's sharp enough. I always do sharpen though, but not in Lightroom. I do it in Photoshop.
Well, you know, another thing you guys can do is we have the texture thing now, but in Lightroom, if you just don't touch the slider and the RAW comes in, it gives you like an automatic 40 sharpening on your Fujifilm files, on your RAW files. There's no worms. If you use the radius only, you still don't get worms, and it sharpens up a little bit. But I find the new texture still better than that. So
cool. All right, let's go on to the next story, which I'm going to get slammed here. I know it. When I saw this, I thought, thanks, Aaron, for putting this story on there. I
thought the same thing.
Because it's Profoto. Let me go back to here. I know I'm going to cop it, but let me discuss this with you guys, because a couple of things. I've seen a couple of these videos that Robert Hall has been sharing about the Profoto A1 and the Godox V1, and talking about price and things like that. And he came up with these findings, which I probably agree with a lot of them. I mean, if I'm being honest about it, but he said absolutely identical in terms of, this is talking about the Profoto A1 and the Godox V1. He said absolutely identical in terms of power capabilities, big difference in light pattern. Profoto A1 light pattern is very even, very smooth transition. And looking at the video, it did look like the Godox was slightly better. And I did agree with what he was saying there as well. It looked a bit more uniform overall. And he just said in a blind test, over 90% of the people preferred the pattern of the Godox V1. But, and I agree with this statement. He said here that in test conditions, the light pattern is more pleasing on the Godox V1, but you won't see it in real life. And that's exactly true, because it's like the brick wall test that I say. You never notice the things in real life because you're not shooting you're not just shooting a wall. But
I agree.
He also said that recycle times were very similar. Profoto can sustain the recycle time without running into thermal issues. And this is areas where I wanted to talk to you about this, because the people, and this is an interesting story, Aaron, because it says that Profoto in trouble, but I don't think they are in trouble at all, because they're totally different markets. It's like you can buy an Apple Watch, but you can also buy really, really expensive watches that both tell the time the same. They both do the same purpose, but one's built for a different market. And I don't think either market will suffer. I think the Godox will do amazingly well, but I don't think it will affect the Profoto at all. And I'll talk about that shortly. But there's a couple of things here. It says that the Profoto can sustain a recycling time without running into any thermal issues. Now, for a professional photographer, that can be a case under certain scenarios. If you're working in media, for instance, like you see them sometimes when they go and do movie, where the movie stars come up. There's Cannes Movie Festival at the moment, and you could see them firing away 20 million shots without stopping using flash. Now, the Godox V1 has the potential to shut down because it will only do 30 full power flashes. The Profoto A1 will run all day, so you'll never have an issue of it thermally shutting down. Now, I read in the article, because this is on Fuji Rumors, I read on the article about certain people were saying that they were doing studio shoots, and these were massive studio shoots where they were shooting models and not stopping, and they were changing models continuously and just shooting and shooting away, and they had to keep stopping because the Godox were overheating. Whereas the Profoto, that will never happen. I can tell you that I do dance recitals where I'm shooting stuff and I'm constantly firing away, and you'll never ever get thermal issues on a Profoto light. So there's issues there. But if that doesn't bother you, there's not many people that will affect. Obviously, then the Godox is probably better for you, because it's much, much cheaper, and it is much, much cheaper. But I'll summarize in a minute as well. Battery life on the, it says there that the Godox, after 30 full flashes, goes into thermal protection mode. Profoto A1 has less battery compared to the Godox V1. And that's, I don't understand that, because it must still use battery when it's even on standby, which is a bit strange. And perhaps they could fix that with firmware. But I have noticed this, that the Profoto has phenomenal color accuracy, which is consistent throughout the various color ranges, and basically it's daylight balanced, whereas the Godox is actually 6180 by 6274, so it's blue. So if you're dealing with true color and you want it to match daylight exactly, the Profoto is going to give you a nicer look because it's less blue. And that's a fact. You don't have to edit it to allow for that. I know people are going to say they don't notice it, but it's there. It's got a definite color cast that you can see that's mentioned. The Godox had better flash duration if it was down in low power. Once they were pushed up a little bit, they basically became the same. Build quality, Godox is solid build. Profoto has a bit of play in the head, but it was a rented flash unit. And I can tell you, well, the ones I looked at didn't have any play. And I think that's probably because he had a rental unit rather than a new one like his Godox was. But let me just stop that because I'll just talk about why I don't think this is going to affect Profoto. Two different markets. I'm a Profoto user. So for me, I will go out and buy the A1 due to the fact that it syncs with everything I've got. Now, if I was you, everyone that's in here that is just starting out, learning flash, or don't have what I've got, which is a love of Profoto, good on you and buy Godox, because there's nothing wrong with the Godox products. You could buy probably 4 of them for the price that I'll buy one Profoto A1. But it's exactly the same terminology. Like I said, some people will buy an Apple Watch and some people will go out and buy a Tag Heuer or however you pronounce it. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of dollars more. Or just like some people will buy a Ferrari and other people will go out and buy a Holden or a Ford or whatever. They all get you to the same place, but some people like certain things. And it always interests me that whenever Profoto is mentioned, they get slammed and slammed and slammed for being more expensive, but no one's forcing you to buy that product. And this is the interesting thing about it. I will use it because it interfaces with everything I've got, that it can control my other lights from that flash. In other words, I don't have to use the attachment on top anymore, the transmitter. I can just stick the A1 on there, and then it will also control all of the speed lights that are around there. If I'm also shooting things like dance recitals and things like that, where I know I'm going to do more than 30 shots, because I do, I know that I'm never going to come across that thermal shutdown that you can get potentially with a Godox. If I'm renting anywhere in the world, I know I can buy Profoto. And even now, I can walk into the shop in Melbourne, the Profoto shop that's there, and I can get something looked at without them charging me, doing anything. I'll just walk in, they'll have a replacement part there and fix it immediately for me. I can't do that with Godox. So there's interesting things there for me personally, but I certainly wouldn't recommend the Profoto for people starting out, because like I said, you can buy 4 of them for the price you can buy one Profoto flash, and they are very, very expensive. But I just think people shouldn't slam companies for being more expensive. In a way, they should be promoting that, because at least it's adding competition. It's making innovation be there. Godox has brought out something that's very similar that may not have ever happened if Profoto never made the A1. And, you know, I just think I know that I'm going to get a million things on there now saying Profoto are rubbish, they're ridiculously overpriced and everything else. But, guys, it's what I like using, and it's what I'm going to continue using. So I don't know what you think about that, Aron.
No, I don't know much about either one of those flashes. I do use the Godox speed lights, but I think you're right. Like people who can afford like the Profoto is going to buy the Profoto. People who can't afford it wasn't going to buy one in the first place. Now that there's an option there, they can buy the Godox. So yeah, I don't think they're going to lose any sales, because there are people, professionals like you, who are just going to buy the more name brand, and just like we're not going to go over everything you just said, for all those pluses to getting the Profoto over the Godox. So yeah, I anybody who wanted to go the Profoto, that's the professional and shooting all the time, I don't know. I don't see them just going right to the Godox now, but maybe there are. But I like your analogy about the Apple Watch and something else. You can go into any Apple store and get things fixed quicker. So there's a lot of pluses that you brought up that I didn't even think about. So yeah, I mean,
it's more. I just think they're totally different markets, and this is the thing that
that's it.
Yeah, a person that is going to buy a Profoto, which is what you said, is not the same type of client that is going to go and buy a Godox. And it's like you have clients in your business as well. You know, some clients are going to come in and spend $2,000 on a product or whatever they're going to buy, whereas others will come in and you know they're not going to get anywhere near there. They're totally different clients, and they're completely different things. A Godox, someone that's going to buy a Godox is very rarely ever in the market for Profoto. So I don't think it's going to affect Profoto at all. Yeah, I really don't.
Yep, well said.
All right, so let's move on. So we've got the next story, and Aron, you can talk about this one because this is about Fuji third-party batteries. Let me bring this up. Because did you look at this, and have you gotten any third-party batteries?
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I've seen this, going through Fuji stuff, and if you go, there's links in here for a video or something about this guy who did like an extensive research on this, and it's not just for Fuji. I mean, he did the Fuji batteries, but it's just, I put this up just for anybody with the camera that's thinking about getting off-market batteries. If you watch this guy's extensive review, you got to go to this article and get to the link. But I just wanted to kind of ask you guys, do you guys use third-party batteries? Have you had any issues? For me, I prefer to use, when you're a professional, you just kind of want to, you don't want to jinx, not jinx, that's the wrong word. You don't want to get anything janky happening to your camera. That I have heard from third-party batteries, but I've used third parties in the past for just as backup batteries or vacation or doing YouTube videos, and they seem fine for me. So I just wanted to ask you guys, do you guys use third-party batteries, and what's your experience with them? And if you really want to know more about all these different batteries, and it even shows like what's the difference from USB charging it opposed to using the dedicated charger, and how that affects the battery, how to prolong batteries, check out this article. But what about you, David? Do you ever use third-party batteries? And if you do they work?
No, look, I actually